what doesn't. You want to come through here, Michael, or whatever. What constitutes money, what doesn't? We kind of kept drilling down, figuring out, kind of ruling out loans and ruling out services and other items, and came down to our two measures of money, M1 and M2, that have a mix of different things. But the key thing is that it's all about accounts, money that's on account, and currency that's in circulation. So if you didn't remember a lot of other things there, hopefully you remember that it goes beyond just the dollar bills that you may or may not have in your wallet. We've got currency in circulation outside of banks is how we define that, plus checking accounts for M1. M2 is M1 plus some more accounts, savings accounts, money market accounts, and some time deposits, some CDs, certificates of deposits. So one of the things we were focusing in on was liquidity. Which one of these is more liquid? Which one is more liquid? We talked about liquidity last time. I gave you some definitions. You can look back in your notes from last time. What was liquidity? Good. The ability to transfer one form of wealth to the other. So how quickly can you liquidate? And then I gave you an alternative definition. A lot of people just think, how quickly can you turn something into cash? Right? How quickly can you turn it into cash? So I just bought some French doors for my house on Craigslist from a guy that lived over in Missouri, and his asset was a bunch of French doors that they pulled out of this hotel, sitting in a garage somewhere, right? So how liquid were those French doors? Are those highly liquid assets or fairly low liquidity? Fairly, yeah, a little low, right? So I was able to talk this guy down. He was asking 180 bucks, and he took 155. So I turned his French doors into $155, right? He liquidated them. So the French doors weren't too liquid. In other words, they didn't fall into one of these government categories. I gave him currency for the doors, and now he's holding something that's what we consider the most liquid asset, and that is paper currency, cash. Okay, so that's the topics we're looking at is money on account versus money in circulation. And I want to start off today with the three purposes of money. What are the purposes of money? Three purposes of money, or functions of money. Number one is that it serves as a medium of exchange. A medium of exchange. It's a means of payment. A means of payment generally accepted. Generally accepted for buying and selling. That's what we mean by a medium of exchange. Now, have any of you heard about cigarettes being money? Cigarettes. Have you ever heard of them being money?
We're talking about the cigarettes you talked about earlier?
No, we're not talking about C plus I plus G plus X. Good, I'm glad you brought that up. We're talking about smoking. Camels, Marlboro Lights, that sort of stuff.
Maybe it's the same kind of idea with beer or anything like that. Pay people with beer cases, cigarettes, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but not where it's falling into the category of money. Does that ring a bell for anybody on smokes, cigarettes? Prison, the prison system, right? You may have seen a few movies on that or some different cases. Julian, why don't you come around? There's a spot right over there. Okay. You don't have much of an angle there to copy notes. So you can come right through here. Got lots of desks. Okay. So in the prison environment, do they allow cash?
No.
No. So cigarettes are money. Cigarettes are money. Is this money in China? No. It's not generally accepted by the Chinese people for transactions. It doesn't serve as a medium of exchange in China. So you need to think about the context in which you are living on what defines money and what doesn't. This isn't always money. It is money if you live in the United States and you're not in jail and you're pretty much circulating around the 50 states of the United States. Then yeah, you've got yourself some money if you're holding that stuff. But it's not in every context. So in the prison system, cigarettes can be money. So they serve as a medium of exchange. Number two, they can serve as a unit of account. A unit of account. So the idea here is quoting goods value in a common unit helps measure relative price or relative worth. So for example, if the price of a Mountain Dew is $2 and the price of a bag of Doritos is $4. What's another way of looking at the price of the bag of Doritos? 2 Mountain Dews, right? So it allows us to easily compare the two. And if we looked at the relative price of one good for the other is the ratio of the two. We've done a little bit of ratio type stuff. If we take the price of Doritos over the price of Mountain Dew, we get wait a second, I want to do this a little differently. We get $4 for every bag of Doritos, and we got $2 for every bottle of Mountain Dew. I did it a little goofy here so that we can take 4 divided by 2 is 2, but 2 what? 2 Mountain Dews for every Dorito. If we take this little expression, we got a fraction in the denominator. Dollars times Dorito times Mountain Dew over dollars. The dollars cancel. And what we're saying is that 2 Mountain Dews can be traded for 1 bag of Dorito. Just kind of a little more formal. The reason I want to do that is not just to waste your time thinking about these relative prices for this chapter so much, but the next chapter we're going to get into exchange rates. And we're going to be expressing the bag of Doritos in terms of the Chinese yuan and an American dollar. And we're going to use that technique to think about, well, what are we really getting? Dorito for Dorito or Mountain Dew for Mountain Dew. So 2 Mountain Dews for every bag of Doritos. The relative price of the Dorito. Okay, so unit of account. It's kind of handy for measuring that. Number 3 is a store of value. A store of value. Cigarettes smoke about the same today as versus a week from now? About the same? Yeah, right? So you get about the same amount of benefit from the tobacco and the cigarette 1 week from now, maybe even 2 weeks from now, depending on how finicky you get. You probably can't hold on to it for a year. Maybe it's, I'm not a smoker, but maybe it starts to get a little stale eventually. But for the most part, it serves as a store of value. If I tuck this $20 bill into my wallet and pull it out 2 weeks from now, did it maintain its value for the most part? Yeah. Now that's where we got to be cautious, is because if I tuck this in my wallet and pull it out 5 years from now, can I buy about the same amount of stuff I could? No, we're starting to diminish the purchasing power of the dollar, right? So there is relative store of value, but it's not maybe a great place to be putting your wealth into the form of currency. But for the most part, it holds its value relatively well. In some countries where inflation has gone to hyper levels, that is not the case. So I've got some data here on a country you may have heard about, possibly. So hyperinflation is 50% per month. So if the Mountain Dew cost you $2 today, what does it cost you next month? 50% inflation is kind of what economists use as a general gauge for hyperinflation. 50% per month. So what's that $2 Mountain Dew going to cost me next month? $3, right? So it starts going up pretty fast. You hold on to that 20 and you're not going to be buying as much Mountain Dew. So here's some data on Zimbabwe, who's had some problems over the years, especially the last 10 years. So its inflation rate on January, this is the monthly inflation rate, on January 5th, 2007 was 13.7%. 13.7%. So pretty high, but the United States has had rates that high, by the way, back in the 70s. So high, but not, well, no, I'm sorry, that's the monthly rate. So no, that's still way high, but not to hyper levels. 6 months later, June of 2007, 207%. 6 months later, this is month by month, I'm skipping down a little bit, 5,250% per month. Divide that by 30, and that would give you per day. So 6 months later, 493,000% per month. Off the charts, right? Zimbabwe money, the dollars, were just about meaningless. We'll get to reasons why countries can get to that point, but the dollar is meaningless. So what do you do when your employer, let's say, pays you, and John works for me, and I said, John, you put in a hard day's work, and we're in Zimbabwe now, and we're experiencing that. I write him his paycheck. What does he go do? Spend all of it, and how soon? You run to the store, right? Literally in these places where there's been hyperinflation over the years, they don't mark prices on the shelf because they're changing them, sometimes hourly, or sometimes at the every half-day moment, they're ramping up prices. Seriously. Kind of crazy that we would even think that's happening, but it can happen where your monetary system gets out of whack. And we'll start to show some reasons why that could happen. Okay, so store of value is the idea that you can reasonably hold on. So money is a convenient way to store wealth for transactions. A convenient way to store wealth, usually for transactions. But not a good investment. So when you graduate from OU and you're having a talk, you're 5 years, 10 years down into your new position, you got, maybe they've got a 401k plan, and I don't want to hear that, well, I've got my money in US currency. That's where I keep I save 15% every paycheck, but I've got the safe bet. I've got it invested in currency. At my house, I have a safe with a stack of $100 bills and a little bit under my mattress. Not a great place to put your money, right? So it is a store of value, and it's a good way, it's a way for transactions to store your wealth, but not a great investment. Okay, questions or comments on that? What did I do with my other sheet? Was I wandering around? But I switched.